May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be ever pleasing in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So as many of you may or may not know, this month, the month of June, is LGBTQIA, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual Pride Month. It's a month where we celebrate the visibility, the contributions, and the general goodness of LGBTQIA individuals who so often have been pushed aside or erased from history. As an openly gay man myself, this month takes on special meaning because it's a month that reminds me, as someone who is gay, I am not alone. That there is a thriving, beautiful, diverse, and truly fantastic community that I am a part of. And there are other people that know my pain and my struggle. Now, I can't pretend I've had the most struggle in my life. Comparatively to others in our community, my life has been pretty easy. Both being male and white has certainly privileged me in that way. But it still hasn't stopped me from being called slurs, or living in fear of people finding out my secret before I came out, or wondering if being in public with my husband is going to cause some sort of scene. I do stand on the shoulders of many who came before me and fought for their rights to be who they are. And I live because they first paved the way for me. And there's really no way I can repay that but to keep pushing forward. And there have been victories, especially recently. Marriage equality was passed 6 years ago now. Even this month, the Supreme Court ruled that sexual orientation and gender identity are covered by existing non-discrimination laws. I don't know if you realize this, but before the Supreme Court said that this month, I could be fired in the state purely because of my sexuality, and that wouldn't be a problem. The ELCA, our church, got to celebrate and lift up Pride Month by highlighting one of our own, Pastor Noah Hepler in Fishtown, as he was featured on an episode of Queer Eye, which if you haven't watched on Netflix, you really should. It's quite good. There are victories to celebrate, but there's still a long way to go. I can take pride in myself and who I am, but I struggle with knowing that there are still places I go where I am not fully included, where I am judged, derided, and sometimes even cast out. The ELCA, our denomination, is still exclusionary in some very real ways when it comes to LGBT members and pastors. Our denomination does love to lift up things like Pastor Noah, to put our prayers about pride out on Facebook. But in our social statements, in our practices, the ELCA can still be very exclusionary. According to the ELCA statement on human sexuality entitled Gift and Trust, marriage is still only between one man and one woman. As it goes on to state in the document, which was passed in 2009 via a vote at churchwide assembly, it says there's no agreement about whether same-gendered partnerships are considered marriage, or if they are beneficial to the community at large, as heterosexual marriages are. This document did offer and approve that openly LGBT people could become leaders in the church, and they could marry, but only in congregations that wanted to welcome them. If a congregation still wants to exclude LGBT individuals, they are welcome to do so. And trust me, they still very much do. Which is why the church's fundamental definition of marriage, still now 11 years later since that document, has not changed. This also means when a gay pastor is looking for a job, about half the congregations they might be looking for a call immediately are off their list. The Supreme Court says you can't fire someone because of their sexuality, but our church still very much supports the idea that if a church doesn't want to consider a gay candidate, even if they're qualified, they don't even have to consider that idea. When our church lifts up things like Pastor Noah, when it lifts up and celebrates the Supreme Court decision about LGBT work discrimination, it does warm my heart to see my community represented and celebrated. But it also rings hollow when I remember that at its core, there are many in this church who would not consider the 7 years since our marriage on August 4th to be a real marriage blessed by God with my husband. We often sing out the words, all are welcome all the time, but they catch in my throat, because I often wonder, do we really mean it? The reason we haven't seen movements on the issue of whether or not gay marriage is marriage in the LCA is because I believe we're afraid to have that hard conversation. The reason many churches can still push aside a perfectly qualified candidate for pastor, sometimes that being the only qualified candidate they'll see for a year because there is a clergy shortage, is because we're not willing to take the risk of having what is perceived to be a charged discussion. We don't want to venture in and have a conversation where we know we might disagree. If we just keep everyone happy and calm, then nothing is wrong. But going back to Pastor James' sermon, that's not really calm or peace at all, is it? I look to our Old Testament reading for today. It's a difficult one. It's a story I'm sure we all know. Abraham is asked by God to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. And it should be said, it's not his only son. He had another one, Ishmael, and he had no problem sending him out in the desert to die. But that's another story. Isaac is the son that Abraham had waited for years from his wife Sarah. It is the one that he'd been praying for and hoping for, and now God was asking Abraham to give his son up, to sacrifice Isaac to God. And the two of them climb the mountain. Isaac gets suspicious. Where is the sacrifice? We haven't brought one. Abraham says God will provide. They get to the top of the mountain. Abraham ties Isaac to the altar, and just when Abraham is about to sacrifice his son, an angel of God intervenes and says, "Stop. Do not harm your son. Here is a ram. Make the sacrifice. I can now see your faith." They don't necessarily consider this an uplifting story, but it does say God is going to call us into difficult things. That when we follow God, it's not always going to be easy, and we are going to be in uncomfortable places. We're going to be called to places where we might not want to go, to talk about things and confront things we might not want to confront. God called to Abraham and asked him to do this incredibly difficult thing. In fact, a probably too difficult thing. And if God is asking you to physically sacrifice your son, you need to seek some sort of help. If Abraham had faith in God's call and followed what God said, do we have the faith to climb the mountain? Do we have the faith to confront the unwelcoming and exclusionary parts of our church? Do we have the faith to have the difficult conversations, the uncomfortable conversations, those angry and charged conversations around equality, race, gender, and belief? We know God is calling, just like God called Abraham, to have those conversations. When we look at what's going on in our world, how is God not calling us to address the inequalities around us? But we fear if we do, if we delve into those topics, if we even talk about changing the definition, we worry that we will lose our church, just like Abraham would lose his son. If we don't ruffle feathers, if we keep everyone happy, if we never take a stand or even enter into what could be perceived as controversial, then the church will be fine, right? We won't lose it. Yet God keeps calling, and God keeps reminding. Just think if the church didn't have that conversation in 2009, I wouldn't be standing here right now. If the church hadn't climbed that mountain then, where there was at least a door cracked open for LGBT individuals in the church, I probably would have never pursued ordained ministry, nor would the hundreds of other LGBT leaders we now have in the church. Our church has failed to have substantive conversations around race, resulting in us being one of the whitest, not one of, the whitest denomination in the nation. If we don't have these conversations, if we don't climb the mountain and have faith that God will be with us as we have these conversations, then we are not following the call of God, and the world will pass us by. And these conversations aren't just talk. These conversations will and should change our church. These conversations will lead to action, to changes, to more social statements, to new initiatives, to new procedures and new ways of reaching out to our neighbors. I can't imagine Isaac was the same after the experience with his father. Our relationship with the church will change after we have these talks. I can imagine Abraham and Isaac treated each other the same way after their encounter on the mountain. But we must remember that Isaac did not die on that mountain. And our church will not die or disappear or spiral out of control because we decide to face what we perceive as the difficult conversations and to work to hear what we have done wrong and where we can do better. I have anger towards my denomination over their stance on LGBT marriage. I am angry, and it hurts to read those words of whether my relationship is beneficial to the community. But my anger does not mean I don't love this church and seek to see it made better and more welcoming. Do not mistake my anger for hate. Do not mistake my anger at the system for anger at you individually. When we enter these conversations, we will face emotions and trying things, but that doesn't mean we don't have a conversation. And the gospel is this: God did not leave Abraham in that incredibly difficult moment. And God will not abandon us when we talk about what are perceived to be difficult and political topics. The conversations will get heated. We won't always agree. It won't be easy to have these conversations. But we must have faith that God will be with us in those difficult places. And out of that, new life and new faith will come.